Alrighty, let's see. Are we rolling? Looks like it. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, the screen is black. There's something that's weird going on with my computer today. I'll have it fixed by the next video, but you're just gonna have to bear with me. I got some visuals for us anyway that I can click through, so it's all good. But today we are tackling a financial blockbuster that hit the news headlines today, and that is who will replace Jerome Powell as the next Federal Reserve Chair. Because, we got Trump back in charge of things. We got Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent right on his hip, ready to fire. You know what I'm saying? And he's looking to name somebody new. He's trying to get rid of Jerome. So I have the 5 finalists that were announced today, and I just wanted to give you a little bit about each one of them because I think it'll be, worthwhile. You hear the names, you learn a little bit about them, you'll be able to do a little bit of research, and then it won't hit you as such a big surprise. We got Fed insiders, we got Wall Street titans, we got, Trump allies, like just buddies of Trump's, and, some wild career twists. But yes, if you stick around, then I will drop my prediction on who I think is going to make the cut and why. So without any further ado, I just want to jump right into it. So let's start off with this man right here. This is Fed Waller, okay? Christopher Waller. And he is actually a Federal Reserve governor in Washington, D.C. at present. He was actually appointed by Donald Trump during the pandemic in 2020, and his term is supposed to last through 2030. Over the last 4 years, he navigated everything from, pandemic recovery all the way through to the inflation spikes, and now, we're here. So, like everybody else on the Fed during 2022, he was known as being pretty hawkish. Because, inflation was 8%. Like, everybody was hawkish. And the people who weren't, it was just that you looked like an idiot if you weren't. So, but now he's taken a 180. He is staunchly dovish. And recently, earlier this month, in an interview, he actually said that we need to get ahead of the labor market and cut rates sooner rather than later. Because, once the labor market starts to get shaky, it moves quick. And unfortunately, that's usually quicker than the Fed is able to react. So he said, look at the jobs data. We got to move. It's critical. Let's make it happen. And he also said that he was not scared of tariff inflation and that the benefits of growth outweighed the risks of inflation, right? So in his words, he predicted that he sees multiple rate cuts over the next 6 months to support the economy, which, for those of us who are in Bitcoin and even in equities, that's a really good sign. And as you'll see as we go further and further down this list of potential candidates, like it's a recurring theme. So something interesting about him is that in the 90s, he actually consulted for banks that were tied to Trump's early real estate ventures. One of them, I believe, was called Midwest Lenders, and they backed his casinos. So he does have ties to Trump. Obviously, this man is not single-handedly responsible for those loans. So before you go off on a crazy, schizophrenic tangent and think, oh my God, this is it, he's the one. Like, no. He was just a part of those lenders, and they probably didn't even meet in person. It was just an interesting tie that I found while I was doing research on him. He doesn't have any scandals or donations to Trump or anything like that, but his dovish shift in policy that he believes in is striking. Like, I think it's really say what you want, but I like the fact that he's not just stuck in his ways. He's never remained a hawk. He never remained a dove. He's just like, he plays it as he sees it. And his alignment towards Trump, in my opinion, or at least alignment towards Trump's goals, is pretty strong. He is pushing for rate cuts, and Trump wants the exact same thing as him. But obviously, he's not new to this. He's true to this, and his alignment with the Fed and his role at the Fed might limit the amount of loyalty that he's able to express towards Trump, right? So just something to keep in mind. And since we're already on the tangent of talking about people who are associated with the Federal Reserve at present, let's go on down to the next potential candidate. So this is Michelle Bowman. I've also heard, I think it was on CNBC, somebody referred to her as Mickey. I was like, wow, that's pretty informal for television. But she's the only woman on this list, and Michelle Bowman has been a Fed governor since 2018. She's right now the vice chair for supervision since June of this year. And she's also based out of Washington, D.C., much like Fed Waller. She spent 4 years easing bank rules. So when you hear Bowman, I need you to think deregulation, okay? That is like her biggest claim to fame, and I think that's really why Donald Trump liked her enough to put her in this list, and Scott Bessent too, right? Because that's her history is rooted in Kansas's banking commissioner role, right? So she, much like Fed Waller, was hawkish in 2022, but now she's neutral to dovish, actually. And recently, in an interview from this month, she said that maintaining the Fed's independence is a non-negotiable, and it's the cornerstone of effective monetary policy. So that quote alone, just from that interview, makes me think, okay, while, she's congruent with Trump in the idea of deregulating banking, especially with Trump being so staunchly invested and interested in cryptocurrency, that she would be in alignment really well with him. The fact that she's big on the independence makes me less inclined to believe that he would really want to go all the way and put her into that position of power. But I could also be wrong, you know what I'm saying? Because she also said that, we need to revise and loosen regulations to support community banks, and that she was committed to listening to all stakeholders, banks, businesses, and the public, to shape better policy, because that's what, in her opinion, policy has been missing over the last several years. And what's kind of interesting, because you say, okay, well, she's talking about policy over the last several years. She's got a history in banking, but what the hell does she know about politics? Funny enough, in the 90s, she worked for Senator Bob Dole. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Dole at all, but you should Google him, because he actually endorsed Trump in 2016. And her ties to Kansas, right? Kansas is known as an agricultural area. Trump's 2025 agenda is big on agricultural deregulation. And I told you, she's the deregulation queen. So, they have some things in common, but I just don't think it's enough, right? Because of her willingness to not only listen to the public, businesses, and banks, but also because of her ties to the Fed and saying that their independence is a non-negotiable. I just don't think if Trump has Trump and Bessent have the ability to choose who they want, even though it's, a pretty good gotcha to put a woman in a position of such power to the Democratic Party, I just don't see her being the potential it, right? So, she's, got no scandals, no donations to any Trump campaigns or anything like that. But yeah, her independence is just going to clash with Trump. She's in alignment moderately. Trump is a fan, but, her autonomy isn't going to cut it. Okay, so that is Fed Bowman, Michelle Bowman. Next, we got Kevin Warsh. Okay, so Kevin Warsh, this guy, man, if you listen to his interviews, personally, I'm like, I've never seen such brown nosing in my life. But this is Kevin Warsh, no current Fed role. His term at the Fed ended in 2011, and now he works, I believe, as an econ professor at Stanford. But I could be wrong about that, so double check. But what you need to know that's important is that he, back in the day, right? And when I say back in the day, we're talking like, GFC, right? 2008 financial crisis type times. He actually was a big critic of the loose policy that was going around during his Morgan Stanley days, right? So he was once hawkish and talking about the inflation risks. So he knows what he's talking about when he says the BS that he spouts these days. He really wants this job, y'all. My goodness. But he, now talks about it's all about growth. I'm all in on growth. And in an interview from like a week ago, he said, "Oh, I fully support President Trump's vision for growth, and easy money with lower rates is the key to unlocking AI's potential. Even if inflation rises, it doesn't matter, right?" He's like, "I'm chomping at the bit to cut rates for this administration's boom." So, it doesn't get any more dovish than that, to be honest with you. Like, he basically just said in plain English on live television that he's willing to make Janet Yellen look like Paul Volcker. You know what I'm saying? So he also, as if that's not egregious enough, said that Ben Bernanke was the last effective Fed chairman who really knew what they were doing. Like, he was praising, Bernanke's bold easing. And the craziest part is he was a critic at the time that it was happening. He was a critic and has pivoted since. And during the 2008 financial crisis, if you're not already not really sold on him, and I don't mean to be pressing so much of my opinion on him as an individual in this video, but the irony is not lost on me. The juiciest bit, though, is that in 2008, during the crisis, he actually was responsible for brokering deals for Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. And, Trump is a fan. He praised both of them, right? Both of those firms. So, Mr. Warsh definitely has Wall Street cred, okay? He actually has donated. He donated just $5,000, which in the grand scheme of things, I say just $5,000 because, I know if you and I found $5,000 in our pocket, we would be stoked. But in the grand scheme of the financial world, $5,000 really ain't shit. So he donated $5,000 to a Trump PAC in 2016. He's, like I said, strongly dovish, fully aligned with Trump's agenda, and he is just super pro-growth, okay? That he pivoted and did a complete 180 since 2008, which, listen, 2008 was a very different time than it is now. Even though there's nothing new under the sun, the economy was a very different place. And especially, yes, with AI being at the forefront of a lot of these companies' minds, it creates a different playing field. But you have to admit that it is a bit concerning to just have a Federal Reserve chair who's running the show that's in full alignment with the president solely and just trying to push the president's agenda. For those of you who are familiar with Fed history, do we really need another Arthur Burns? I don't know. That's up for your interpretation. Okay, so that is Kevin Warsh. And now we have another Kevin. You might recognize this man's face. This is Kevin Hassett. He also does not have a role at the Fed, but he's Trump's National Economic Council director throughout this year. He actually has Republican roots that trace back, as far as I could tell, to 2000. Okay, so he was advising John McCain in the primaries back then. And in 2004, he was also helping support George W. So this man is not new to this. He is true to this. Republican through and through. Blue-eyed Republican, baby. So after, his 2017 to 2019 CEA, which is the Council of Economic Advisors chair role, where, he drove Trump's, his tax cuts. He then spent the couple of years after that, from 2021 to 2025, at AEI, shaping the 2024 campaign. So AEI is the American Enterprise Institute, which is a center-right think tank based out of Washington, D.C. as well. He is dovish leaning. People could say dovish leaning neutral, but really, if you start listening to, like, even on October the 24th, I was listening to one of his interviews where he said tax relief and stable rates can unlock growth, but watch inflation. He's ready to do what it takes to, I don't think that he would be nearly as liberal with his rate cuts as, say, Kevin Warsh would be. But I think that he's been in the game with Republicans long enough that if they asked him to jump, he would say how high. He donated $10,000 to Trump's victory fund in 2024 and $15,000 to Republicans since 2016. So not huge sums of money in the grand scheme of things, but he's put up a pretty penny, a little bit of bread. You know what I'm saying? As far as alignment goes with Trump, he's strong. And like he's already proven himself as, a go-to guy for Trump. He's been working, like I said, the National Economic Council director since this year. So, I really do think that he has potential, but I'm going to get through the rest of this list down to this last person, or these last two people actually. And then I'll give you my opinion on who I think, is going to be the it guy. So, next we have, oh wait, I've done 4, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I did both Kevins. Okay, cool. So last on this list we have Rick Rieder. Okay, so you're looking at him, you're like, oh wow, this guy looks pretty official. Yeah, well, he has no Fed role, but he is BlackRock's chief investment officer. So that is pretty much one of the final nails in the coffin to get BlackRock integrated completely across the board in everything, right? BlackRock is in the Fed, then they're everywhere. They're in the clothes you wear, the food you eat, everything. What makes him an interesting nominee and why I think he made it in here outside of obviously being well connected and high up at BlackRock is that he's a bond market expert, much like Bessent. Because remember, Bessent is a debt guy. Bessent, he worked in the bond market as well. And over the last 4 years, Mr. Rieder, I think it's his name, he has shaped, right, the global bond market. And recently, he's been very vocal about that. So on October the 20th, he had an interview where he said that AI is driving productivity. It's making the economy resilient. And he said that rates need to come down in order to, keep that carrying forward. And he really talks a lot about how these companies are, they're having these incredible earnings. Let's see. I have a quote from him somewhere. Rates need to come down, echoing that the bond market signaled the funds rate is too high. He is bullish. Here it is. Citing great earnings and cash, but warns that the tech boom over the next decade could be a death knell for jobs in the public sector. He also stressed that Fed independence is imperative and suggested that the Fed can get creative to solve inflation and to come up with solutions for inflation. Yet, in September, he noted that tariffs could add 1% to 2% to inflation. So he's kind of like, he's a banker through and through, right? He rides the fence pretty well. His 2016 donations of $114,684 mostly went to Democrats, actually. I think it was like a 60-40 split. And he hasn't really done anything in particular that makes me think, oh, he's trying to, buy his way into the position. I mean, the man probably makes more money than, I can't even begin to fathom how much money this guy probably brings in as the chief investment officer at BlackRock. It's probably insane. And then, of course, BlackRock probably has a good hand in influencing this because of their $2 billion United Arab Emirates investment, which is also tied to Trump's crypto deals, so that could be considered indirect support, but it's kind of a reach in my opinion. The biggest thing that I think really puts him as one of the higher candidates on this list is the fact that he has bond expertise and he's so well connected and he has he's had a dovish pivot, you know what I'm saying, since the lull of 2022. So I think he could really impress Scott Bessent. And since Bessent is kind of the guy that's, doing the interviews here and giving a little layer of insulation between, just Trump and each of these candidates, I think he's a higher up contender than, say, Bowman. But he's in alignment partially. He's very savvy with the market, and he does have a good understanding of the different, financial tricks that could be played to swing this. So all in all, he doesn't have a loyalist history, which could be a problem. But like I said, if Bessent is into him and is feeling like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, then maybe we got a little something here. But in my opinion, truth be told, out of all of these 5 individuals, I would be most inclined to believe Mr. Hassett is going to be our next Fed chair. I think this is the face of the next Fed chair. And if it's not Hassett, it's going to be Warsh, just because Warsh has made it abundantly clear that if Trump tells him to jump, it's just a matter of saying, how high, I'll do it. He is very open and very, very vocal about his willingness to do whatever it takes to support Donald Trump in his presidency. So honestly, either of these 2 faces is going to be running our Fed. I would be very, very surprised if it was anyone else. But honestly, we got number 1, number 2, number 3, actually number 4, and then number 5. Okay. Mind you, Fed Waller also did say that he has not had any interviews with Bessent or for this role. I think he said that last week. So, what I'm saying? I put him at last just because of that, but also, he's an independent guy. He thinks independently. Not necessarily saying that he's the biggest cowboy ever, but yeah. So I think Mr. Hassett, this might be the face that you see on those Wednesday meetings when you're wanting to know what's happening with the Fed. Hope this video gave you a little bit of insight about who these nominees are, who these candidates are, and be on the lookout for any headlines, any new statements that they make, because, anything can happen. By the end of this year, we should know exactly who it is, and that is my pick for who is up next. Hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are. Hope you're well. And until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.